So, welcome to what is hopefully still spooky season by the time I upload this. This game is intended to be the Halloween review, but this month has been more than a little chaotic and I ended up sick in the middle of it all, meaning progress has been rather slow. Still, I started down this path and I'm gonna see it to the end, even if it means I'm a little late to the party. If not, well, disregard what I just said, because I'll be very proud of myself for having gotten this out on time. Either way, today we're taking a dive into a world of pure depression and decay. Hooray! Have you ever seen Morrowind and wondered, yeah, this is pretty bleak, but how could it be worse? Well, this is the game for you. An RPG where everyone and everything is pretty much resigned to their fate in a dying world, and you're just another body for the future pile. But that doesn't mean you don't at least have some influence on what the pile will look like. So pack your gear and get ready to stare apathy in the face. This is Delusion. Immediately you'll notice that Delusion has a very particular graphic style to it. And I say graphics instead of art because the 2D art style is something else entirely. A sort of storybook drawing aesthetic going on there. No, I'm talking about the graphics. The PS1 style polygons that shift and blur as they move around, providing a nostalgic feeling for those who grew up on that console, and an unsettling feeling for those who didn't. Nothing seems to sit still, at least nothing natural does. It all looks like it's writhing around just enough for you to notice. There are also layers to this, from extra wobbling to how shifty the textures are, that sort of stuff. To be honest, I had to turn off a few of the texture settings as all of them together were giving me some motion sickness and headaches while I was playing. Not the best situation to be in, but it certainly had me a little creeped out, which was definitely the intention, I think. And the audio design is doing that too. The game is very careful about when it plays audio. You only get the most basic ambient track when wandering the open world, making everything feel particularly quiet, particularly dead, really, which is fitting given the amount of corpses strewn about the place. It also allows for you to listen in on when there's something of note nearby, like an object emanating a humming noise or a monster that just noticed you and is now very upset. And if you're not careful, those monsters could very well get the jump on you. But on the subject, why exactly are you wandering around anyway? The game takes place in the Oniric Isles, a specific region of what's called the Sky Realms, essentially the remains of the world after an apocalypse had destroyed the surface. Now, the Sky Realms are the only truly habitable places for humanity, and that's really not saying much. A major event in this world's history is the God War, a cataclysmic war fought primarily by a group called the Apostolic Union against any and all divine or divine-adjacent entities in the world, declaring their extermination in the name of reason and progress. The end result of this war, however, is a broken world that is slowly rotting away. Let me reiterate here, this is not a game where the world has some potential grand future ahead of it with more stories to come like the Elder Scrolls or Final Fantasy. This world is a corpse, and everyone currently alive are just maggots living off the remains. Sure, you have the potential to prolong the life of this world, maybe even make a few things better in the Sky Realms, but it's temporary. This world is clearly too far gone to truly be saved. So, if that's not your quest here, what is it? Well, much in the tradition of games like Elder Scrolls, you play as a prisoner of the Apostolic Union. Funny thing is, sometimes the Union will choose to not execute their prisoners and instead enslave them as agents of their Inquisition. And that's what you are, a freshly made member of the inquisitorial arm of the Union, tasked with hunting down a woman named Vela Colose. Colose? However you pronounce that. Why? Well, aside from being a mercenary turned sky pirate, criminal type of stuff, Vela is hunting down some sort of artifact of immense power known as the Cradle. Her plan is to use this power to create what she describes as a new heaven in the Sky Realms. That sounds an awful lot like god-worshipping talk, doesn't it? The Union certainly thinks so, and so they became very keen on hunting her down. And it seems others who know her agree, such as her old mentor, who's convinced that she's much more likely to destroy the world with this thing than she is to save it. And so, you must wander the Oniric Isles, solving problems, gaining information, and gathering allies for your inevitable confrontation with Vela, where you learn the truth of this power and decide what happens next. All in all, I like the story, but not necessarily because of the main plot itself. The main plot is fine, but the main appeal of it to me is that it serves an excuse to explore more corners of the Isles and see what it has to offer, because that's the real strong suit here, the world. The world is as depressing as it is intriguing. I don't need to be told to go exploring because I just see weird stuff in the distance and I genuinely just want to go there and see what it is. The locations, characters, and writing all flesh out this world where you can feel that it has a much deeper history you're not being exposed to here because any evidence of that history is long gone now. Maybe this world really was some grand high fantasy realm at one point. Who knows? All we get to see are the rotting remains. And you know what? Most characters don't even care. They see the sorry state everything is in, and most feel resigned to their fate by now. The Apostolic Union even embraced it as superior to the way things were when the Pantheon was alive. And that's not even getting into other factions like the Clockwork Kingdom, a land of soulless machinery, or the Endless, who are cursed to never die even as their bodies rot and decay. Worse yet, the Union may have a point. The deities of the Pantheon make some pretty twisted contracts with their worshippers, more akin to devils than gods, like feeding someone to a mushroom for a better harvest, or suffering eternal pain to ward off a disease. Nothing is as it seems, and it just makes me want to learn and explore more. As for exploring, let's see the gameplay. The best way I can summarize the gameplay of Dread Delusion is Morrowind, but better, honestly. It wears that Morrowind inspiration on its sleeve, but it's not arrogant enough to think there weren't things that needed fixing, so they fixed them. For one, exploration. You traverse the world mostly by foot, eventually by airship once you can afford it, but unlike its predecessors, the distance between locations is far more reasonable and your walking speed is actually decent. You don't need to constantly expend your stamina bar just to get from one place to another since you move at a brisk pace. A pace that's also decent enough for dodging around when in combat with the occasional enemy. And as far as combat is concerned, you have the three traditional classes to sort of build your stats into, the warrior, mage, or rogue, but what they can realistically do is a little different. A mage build, for instance, will be less about spell slinging for a lot of the game, and more about finding secrets in the environment and brewing potions. And the rogue will probably be using throwing weapons and or a bow, as well as the whole lockpicking thing, while the warrior, well, take a wild guess. It's not crazy deep, at least it doesn't feel like it, but it provides just enough variety to feel like you can have more than one distinct playthrough gameplay-wise. The subject of replayability also ropes in the story as well. Throughout the game, you're given choices regarding how you proceed with your ultimate task of hunting down Vela or otherwise serving the Union. You can actually choose to go rogue in some areas, help god worshippers sustain divine contracts, and potentially even recruit members of Vela's former crew to either stop or help her, so there is choice in the game. It's just that most choices still suck, as far as the world is concerned at least. And those are my thoughts on Delusion. I was turned on to this game by another friend of mine a number of months ago who seemed to rightly think it was up my alley. It feels almost like Morrowind merged with Velvedek in some ways, and frankly, I think that's pretty cool. If you're into RPGs that lean more into the weird side of things, I'd say give it a go. This has been TheRatMan, and I will see you all later. And lastly, a special thank you shout out to Turtle Taco, Sunmingo, Scarlet, Mike Uniturtle, Dizerat, and Reese. Thank you for the support.